Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning, this is Jonathan Small, host and producer of All About You. This program is broadcast every week from AccessTV.org studios in downtown Hartford. This show is designed to give a guest a chance to give their life story. And this morning I have an interesting guest who is the first vice president of the West Indian Social Club in Hartford. Her name is Nicone Gordon. Good morning, Nicone, I believe is this correctly.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning.
Yes, it is Nicone Gordon.
Okay.
And it's funny that you should say Nicole because everybody says Nicole
Yes.
when it's Nicone. And the story behind that is that I was born and spent most of my early years in Jamaica,
Okay.
which many people consider a developing country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was registered by a family member when I was born. And at the time, there was an error that was on my birth certificate. So what should have been Nicole became Nicone.
Mm-hmm.
And because it would take so long to have that paperwork corrected, and because this was well before computers and so on,
Yes.
it was Nicone. It was registered as Nicone, and my parents decided to keep it just because it would take so long
Mm-hmm.
to have that process corrected. So that's the story behind my name.
Okay, now you say you were born in Jamaica. What was it like growing up in that country?
Well, I had a very, very pleasant childhood. I was born in a parish called St. Catherine,
Mm-hmm.
in a rural area of that parish. I moved to Kingston, which is the capital
Mm-hmm.
of the country, when I was 7, and lived in what's called, more like the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so went to high school and did most of my schooling there, my early years through the 11th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then I immigrated to the United States.
Okay.
But growing up, certainly in those formative years, got the benefit of living in a beautiful country,
Mm-hmm.
with warm people,
Mm-hmm.
and a great education,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly enjoyed my years there, and I continue to go back as often as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I immigrated to the United States and completed the 12th grade here,
Okay.
and then decided to move on to college. At that time, I had a number of family members living in the Hartford area,
Okay.
and decided to attend Trinity College in Hartford,
Mm-hmm.
where I then became familiar with the area, got entrenched in the community here.
Mm-hmm.
The West Indian community is very large in this area.
Yes.
So I was not missing home at all,
Okay.
in the sense that all of the things that I would need, except for the warm sunshine
Right.
year-round, was here. All of the products, the food, certainly the people,
Mm-hmm.
and the place, the community, and certainly the West Indian Social Club, and as well as other area organizations were here, so that made me feel much more at home.
Well, have you been in America longer than in Jamaica or less?
At this point, longer.
Longer, okay.
Yes, because I did come here when I was 16 years old, and so
Okay.
it's do the math. It's
Okay. I won't ask you if you did anything like that. You've been here longer.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So.
Now you are attorney. You work in downtown Hartford. Is that correct?
Yes. So after I completed my studies at Trinity College, where I majored in history, I decided to take my liberal arts education and use it to apply towards law school. And so I ended up going to Yukon Law School in the area as well, and spent my time there, and then decided, passed the bar exam and decided to practice law for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for, I started out my career with an insurance company, a large carrier that focused quite a bit in the workers' compensation line. And so whereas I started my career doing different types of insurance defense work, eventually I kind of branched out into the area of workers' comp.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent, many years running to hearings and court, doing all of the litigation for, the company related to workers' comp for the territory that I was handling. And decided that I needed a change, and wanted to expand my horizon within the insurance industry. So I decided to leave and work for another insurance carrier within their home office.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did that, I then developed other skills in terms of leading people, learning more about operations versus just my small area that I did as a defense attorney for the insurance company. Mm. I learned how the entire insurance business worked,
mm-hmm.
From your underwriting to claims to your investments, to your regulatory issues. Mm-hmm. All of those things was encompassed in that second job. I also obtained my CPCU designation, which is the Chartered Property Casualty Underwriter designation, which in many ways I value almost as much as my law degree, because it helps me to understand my business.
Yes.
As much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for that company for a number of years. I then moved on to my current position with another insurance carrier, well known in the area, where I now manage a group of people that oversee large cases,
Okay.
major cases in workers' compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I do for work.
All right. Now, your position as the first vice president of the West Indian Social Club, that's not a paid position, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And I'm glad you raised that question. Going to my involvement with the West Indian Social Club, let me just give you a little bit of background as to how I became involved. As I said, when I came here, I noticed a large contingent of Caribbean people in the area. And by that I mean people from not only Jamaica,
Yes.
but Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, the Bahamas, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, all of those smaller islands on the Eastern Caribbean, as well as Guyana. Those nations are all represented in this area. And when I joined the organization, it was around 1999, and I wanted to be part of something that whose mission, which is the mission of the West Indian Social Club, was it's basically to promote fellowship and unity among people of the Caribbean. It's a central meeting place for people of the Caribbean, and it, you know, as you become a member, it becomes your home in the sense that you can rely on others to assist you in times of difficulties. So that was appealing to me, an organization with that mission. You know, there are many other organizations of its type, but the West Indian Social Club is the oldest organization of its type, and certainly in this area among the largest. So I wanted to be part of an organization that was well established since 1950,
yes,
and had the structure and procedures and the membership in place that I was looking for to you know, develop my own sense of community.
Well, when did you officially been taken over as the first vice president of the West Indian Social Club? Which particular year did that take place at?
Okay, so I've served on the board in various capacities over the years since I joined, but I officially ran for first vice president, my current position, at the start of this year, 2014, and was elected in January of this year. So each, you know, it is elected. It's a 1-year term with the possibility of rerunning for another term, another 1-year term. So, you know, many people have run, and, you know, it's an election, so you may or may you may or may not be there the following year.
Right.
And we do take our election seriously.
Yes.
So it's an interesting process.
Well, the election process, you have a certain amount of memberships that has to vote on who becomes president and vice president. And also, how many members are currently at the West Indian Social Club?
Okay, we membership is a rolling thing. We probably have maybe 300 or more members, but in terms of active members, meaning people who have paid their dues, meaning met all the financial obligations, as well as what we call lifetime members, who are people who have been members for 30 years or more. The number is about 150.
Okay.
Currently.
150.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, you live technically in the greater Hartford area, outside of the city. You work downtown.
Yes.
And the West Indian Social Club is in the north end of the northeast section of the city. Is that kind of like 3 different worlds that you experience? Like you reside in one world, you come downtown in another world, and then you go into another urban setting world? That like 3 different worlds that you experience?
You know, that's a very, very good question, and I never really thought about it that way, but it is kind of like 3 different worlds. I do live in a suburb of the city,
yes,
and I work downtown, but that's not unusual for this area. A lot of people, you know, work in the city, and you know, they go home to the suburbs. But yes, you know, spending a lot of time in where the club is located, that's also a different world. And I do spend a lot of time in Hartford. You know, also keep in mind that I won't find my Jamaican products in the suburbs. So I have to stop on my way home to pick up my bread, you know, my you know, buns, you know, all these different things that I feel like I need to survive. So I do spend a lot of time in the city, but you're right. It's like 3 different little areas.
Well, excuse me, the West Indian Social Club has no intention on ever leaving the city. You think it's always going to be remaining where it's at?
That's correct. Now, as I mentioned, the club was started in 1950, and we have to make a distinction between, the club, i.e. the membership, and the building, which is kind of the point that you're getting at in terms of whether it's ever going to move. It was started by a number of people who didn't have a place to go to. Some people didn't feel, particularly welcome at the time in the 1950s in certain establishments. So what they did was they started banding together. They started meeting in churches and various homes until they actually located a building on Barber Street. That's the original building of the West Indian Social Club.
Yes.
And many years later, apparently the city wanted to do some things with that area, so they ended up moving from that location to its current location, which is a 17,000 plus square foot building, which used to be a skating rink.
Yes.
And, through the leadership of Frank Jacobs and some other folks, they were able to acquire that building, and that's the building that's become identified as the West Indian Social Club. But the social club is the membership itself.
Yes, that's
and
a good
people that make up the club.
The club, yes.
Yes.
That's a good segment to end this first part of the show, and we'll definitely come back and do a follow-up on the second part of where the West Indian Social Club is moving towards.
Okay.
This is Jonathan Small. I'm hosting All About You this morning with my guest, Nicone Gordon, the first vice president of the West Indian Social Club, and we will be right back very shortly. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here tonight to congratulate and support AccessTV.org. AccessTV.org has reached hundreds and thousands of people. It's done a great job informing the community about important issues in our city, our state, and our nation. I congratulate Stan McCauley and Nyesha for the job they've done. And now with their new format, which will reach many more people and which will be available through many more formats, the future is very bright for AccessTV.org. Congratulations, and may you continue your mission of informing our community. Thank you very much.
This is Jonathan Small again, hosting All About You with my guest this morning, Nicone Gordon, the first vice president of the West Indian Social Club. Nicone, we kind of left off indicating, the memberships of the West Indian Club, and would the West Indian Club ever decide to leave that particular part of the northeast section of Hartford? And from what I understand, it's pretty much going to be stationary. The West Indian Social Club is in an urban setting that has a lot of commercial churches. Well, it has churches, restaurants, small businesses. Does the West Indian Social Club tries to play a role outside of its building in that area?
Absolutely, we do. The West Indian Social Club is primarily a community organization. And I know that there are a lot of people that assume that it's a party place.
Yes.
But there is a whole lot that goes on there in terms of the community. To name a few, the West Indian Social Club basically out of the West Indian Social Club was born the West Indian Foundation, which is more the the social, educational, and cultural arm of the club. So that was formed in the late 1970s. So that's a separate entity, but very closely tied to us. And we work in partnership in terms of scholarships and educational things. But the club itself hosts many activities that are geared towards the community. Just this year alone, and this is very typical, we have hosted Black History Month programs. We have hosted a forum addressing the affordable health care legislation, and what would be needed to sign up before the deadline.
Yes.
Earlier this year, we hosted the Registrar General of Jamaica, wherein a lot of folks need to, again, going back to the whole issue of your birth certificates and so on.
Okay.
There are still a lot of people who may want to get these legal documents retrieved for various reasons, including immigration reasons and so on. And so our organization hosted the Registrar General there so that people could simply come, and now with computers and all this stuff, they can have easy access to getting those documents which were previously so hard to take months to get them. So we also have a yearly scholarship pageant. I don't know if you're familiar with the Miss West Indian scholarship pageant, which is it's not a beauty competition, but the young lady that wins the competition is a woman that's college bound and meets certain criteria, and obviously represents us at formal occasions and so on. But so that's a scholarship. We also host community cleanups. We have an anniversary ball each year where we honor, and it's coming up on May 3rd, where we honor individuals in the community who are doing remarkable things. We also have things like Mother's and Father's Day programs for membership, things that are geared around membership. We try to make sure that, again, going to our mission of aiding or membership and people, Caribbean people, when they're here, we have an aging population. This is not just a West Indian Social Club thing.
Yes.
It's a countrywide thing. I once read that there are going to be 10,000 people a day retiring. And so, thinking of, and these are the baby boomers and so on. And this is a problem within the workforce. I face that at my current job in terms of how do we replenish those people. But it's the same for organizations as well. These same people are now elderly, and what can we do to help them? In terms of our club environment, these folks cannot do be the kind of volunteers that they were in the past. They can't climb ladders. They can't do paint and help us do certain things. So we have to focus on the new and the next generation of people. So that is one of our current challenges, is bringing in younger people. And we also face a lot of the issues of many area organizations in terms of needing to move with the times.
Yes.
Now in terms of communication, or membership, having gotten, being more seasoned in age, had not focused on, what's new out there. How do we utilize social media to market our organization? You know, what about Facebook and Twitter and so on? What about the internet?
Yeah.
You know, some of our or more elderly folks still, you know, in terms of correspondence, we still have to do things the same old way in terms of we have to give them a phone call.
Yes.
And we have to send them letters because they don't necessarily have or are familiar with, you know, communicating via email. So,
Well, Nicole, I understand the West Indian Club is a community involvement organization, and there's a lot of things that they're doing. I was born and raised in that area, so I'm kind of very familiar with the northeast section of the city. Now, I don't want to say this as a negative term, but let's just say constructive criticism.
yeah.
The West Indian Social Club looks like the building would need a new building, perfectly blunt. You know, it's an older building. It was a former roller skating ring. It's kind of ironic that you mentioned it took over from a roller skating ring. There's really not much recreational activities beyond just, you know, clubs and, you know, restaurants and some churches. But as far as overall recreational development in that section is kind of non-existent. I'm not a member technically of the West Indian Social Club, but let's just say, for instance, I have a concern with my community, and I would like to see a different level of economic development. If I came to the West Indian Social Club, would I be able to get some type of input?
Absolutely. We by the way, you know, thank you for the constructive criticism. You know, it's you know, we are trying to do some renovations and so on to make the appearance of the building, you know, more, you know, nice. Make it nicer.
Yes.
It's not run down by any means,
No.
but there are certain things that we can do to improve it. But I think it's more a condition of the general neighborhood and the environment, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, obviously, you know, by the city and so on. But we you know, in terms of people coming in, certainly you would be welcome.
Okay.
You know, you'd go through the application process like anyone else. You know, you'd need to be referred by existing members. So that's kind of the process. In terms of recreation, we do recreate. There are, one of the things I forgot to mention is that, again, the club was started by folks that were not only farm workers, but their particular type of recreation focused primarily on the sport of cricket.
Yes, I understand.
And another game called dominoes.
Yes.
So they put those together, and that's kind of how, you know, how it started. We still, you know, if you go into this day, we have pictures of the original cricket teams, and we still have a team that competes against area teams in various sports. So we are expanding the recreational piece. The members get together and they do things together. So it's not that there's nothing going on. There's plenty going on. It's just that it's not necessarily advertised as well as it could be, and that's something that we're working on.
Well, let's kind of clarify something. When I meant recreational activities, I wasn't so much talking about within the West Indian Social Club. I'm talking about when you get off of exit 33 and you go down North Main Street. And I do want to address another issue too about economic development, because the West Indian Social Club is in that part of a, you know, commercialized urban street. The first picture you see if you're getting off of exit 33, if you, let's say you're going down to the West Indian Social Club, you see a Department of Social Service building that used to be a factory.
Yeah.
Now, if a member or somebody in the community would like to see a factory come back into the city, or some type of light rail industry, or some type of small businesses, What role could the West Indian Social Club play in trying to advocate some issues on an economic, political level like that? Like we want to see a factory or industry and replace that social service building and have it being moved someplace else.
Well, I know I recently attended a meeting that was put on through the city of Hartford where they're looking at various zoning issues and trying to decide whether, different buildings and so on in these various neighborhoods anyway, parts of Hartford, if they fit, if they need to be changed, and I was part of a survey. I did filled out the cards, like everyone else, in terms of what I would like to see here and there. So I think where it starts is for the West Indian Social Club, as well as everyone else that's involved, that are residents, that are business owners, making their opinions known to the city and the folks that control what happens in these various neighborhoods in terms of zoning and businesses and so on. I think that's where we can have an impact.
Well, I mean, my point about mentioning something on that level is technically the building could be affected by outside issues outside of the building. And you've had some issues with security, some shooting incidents that has taken place a few times at the West Indian Social Club. I'm not blaming the West Indian Social Club for that problem, but it's like if you're going to be an organization within that type of urban setting, you don't have the luxury to say it's not our problem, let the police or let somebody else deal with certain problems. You do a lot in the community with what you are doing. I'm just saying if we would like to see not just the West Indian Social Club, but other organizations throughout the greater Hartford kind of come together and try to set up something a little bit more different, to provide more resources. Does the West Indian Social Club kind of open the arms to formulate with other social organizations, or just kind of limit it to it's one club?
No, let me just address the first part of your statement. Let me just clarify that everything gets labeled as a West Indian Social Club, rightly or wrongly.
Right.
And some of those incidents that you are describing really have nothing to do with the social club and have to do with individuals who have rented that back part of the facility that's designated for that. Like other social clubs of its nature, in order to sustain a 17,000 square foot building, we have to generate revenue in certain ways. So when the building is rented, and certainly we have certain contractual agreements in place and so on, but those incidents have typically arisen out of that piece of the folks that have rented the building, and they're not the West Indian Social Club, but it gets labeled as such because it's the building.
Yes, I understand.
And people see that's the front part, that's what it says on the building, so it must be ours. So that's I just wanted to clarify that. And the second part of your statement, which is more the question, we certainly reach out to other community organizations, and I don't know if you're familiar with all of the various organizations along there, but along that street, I mean, there's Sportsmen, there's various lodges, there's Progressive League, there are different organizations like the West Indian Independence Parade, those folks, those are all separate, and we all try to work together to come up with solutions to address some of these issues.
Yeah. Well, we're really up on time. I really just want to ask one last question. I think it's kind of important.
Okay.
you have a large Caribbean population in the greater Hartford area. I've visited in, JFK Airport is in Jamaica, New York. They happen to have the Jamaica Development Corporation. I think it's a good model. I think it's doing a lot of things towards, small businesses and other areas. And sometimes I just have an issue that you have all of these different organizations that exist in the greater Hartford area, but it doesn't seem to put one main organization that really represents the whole community. And I think at sometimes maybe looking at other places to see what they're doing might be a good example to kind of, educate yourself about what we could be doing. So I think you presented a lot of critical information. I just wish we had a little bit more time. But are you familiar about other organizations throughout the country, and do you kind of network on that level?
Yes, we certainly do. I'm familiar with NAJASO, and that's kind of like a national organization, and that's kind of really similar to what you're talking about. We also have a Caribbean Trade Council here that's focused on economic development, but I agree that we do need to look further into the issue of seeing if we can, form one organization similar to what's there that you mentioned, that's focused, more specifically on economic development, because there's a lot of wonderful things going on in the area. I mean, you see the number of businesses that are Caribbean related, and if we could do something that's a little bit more, be a little bit more cohesive, and work together more, I think we could really help our community and serve our neighborhoods better.
Okay. Well, let's definitely let that be the last words, and I really appreciate you coming down, being my guest this morning, and I wish you the very best of luck in the new year with your position as the first vice president of the West Indian Social Club. Nicone Gordon was my guest this morning. Again, this is Jonathan Small. I had enjoyed hosting and producing this program, All About You, this morning. And like I mentioned, there's many other good programs that you could always see throughout the week on accesstv.org. And as I also say every week to people out there, have a very blessed day and keep the faith. Thank you.